I still remember the night of October 14th, 2021. Not because anything extraordinary happened that day, but because it was the last night I went to bed believing my life was stable. The last night I thought I had it all figured out. The last night I believed in forever. It's strange how life works. One moment you're sitting on your roof, half watching a Netflix series you've seen 100 times, your wife next to you scrolling through Instagram, a faint smile on her lips. You think, this is it. This is happiness. This is my safe place. And then, one small shift, one bad day, one piece of bad news, and everything you thought was unshakable starts crumbling beneath your feet. That night, I was sitting in our living room in Austin, Texas, sipping cold beer straight from the bottle. The glow from the TV danced on the walls, but I wasn't really watching. My mind was elsewhere on my job at CloudByte Solutions, a mid-sized SaaS company where I'd been working as a senior systems analyst for nearly 7 years. Things at work had been tense for months. The company was restructuring after a brutal hit from the pandemic, and whispers about layoffs had been circulating since August. I'd brushed them off at first. I was good at my job. I had loyal clients, decent performance numbers, and a boss who, up until recently, seemed to like me. But deep down, I knew the industry was shifting fast, and we were struggling to keep up. And then there was Sophie, my wife, my best friend, my partner. Or at least, I thought she was. We'd met in 2015 at a SXXU after party, both of us drunk on cheap tequila shots, and the kind of wild optimism that comes with being young and in your late 20s. I was 28, she was 26. She had these warm hazel eyes and an easy laugh that made everything around her feel lighter. When I proposed in 2017, I did it in the most cliché way possible, standing in the middle of Zilker Park during the summer fireworks, holding a ring I couldn't really afford, but desperate to make her mine. She cried, said yes, and for a while life really did feel like one of those cheesy rom-coms you pretend you hate but secretly enjoy. We bought a modest 2-bedroom townhouse in East Austin in 20. We spent weekends building IKEA furniture, bickering over backsplash tiles for the kitchen, and daydreaming about someday having kids. We had routines, little rituals, Friday night pizza, Sunday morning runs by Lady Bird Lake, lazy movie nights where we'd fight over what to watch but always settle on something neither of us cared about. It wasn't perfect. We had arguments like any couple. Money was sometimes tight, especially during COVID when Sophie's freelance photography work slowed down, but we had each other. That's what I believed. That's what I built my entire sense of security on. Looking back now, I can see all the small cracks that I ignored. The way she started spending more time out working late, the sudden obsession with Pilates and juice cleanses she never used to care about, the new friends I didn't know much about, the late-night texts she'd tilt her phone away from me to read, but I was too busy drowning in deadlines and trying to hold on to my job to notice. Or maybe I noticed and just didn't want to admit what my gut was whispering, because if I admitted it I'd have to face the possibility that Sophie wasn't as all-in as I thought she was, and I couldn't handle that. Not when I was already stretched so thin trying to hold my professional life together. Then came November 3rd, 2021. I woke up that morning feeling like I had a cinder block on my chest. I'd barely slept, tossing and turning with this gnawing anxiety that something bad was coming. When I checked my email, there it was. Subject, company update, organizational restructuring. I skimmed the message, my throat tightening with every line until I got to the part where my name was on the list of roles impacted. Just like that, 7 years of work vanished into a sterile HR email filled with corporate jargon about restructuring initiatives and challenging market conditions. I remember sitting there on the edge of the bed staring at my laptop, my hands shaking. Sophie was in the kitchen making coffee. I thought about telling her right away, but for some reason I couldn't, not yet. I didn't want her to see me like that, defeated, stripped of the identity I'd built for myself. When I finally told her later that evening, she hugged me. She said it would be okay. She said we'd get through it together, and for a brief moment I believed her. But things started changing fast after that. At first, Sophie tried to be supportive. She'd bring me tea when I spent hours on my laptop updating my resume. She'd say things like, "You'll find something better, babe." But her words always sounded hollow, like they were rehearsed. By December, the tension was thicker than Texas summer air. I was applying to every tech company within a 100-mile radius. But the market was brutal. Layoffs were everywhere. People were fighting over scraps. Weeks turned into months, and the rejection emails piled up like unpaid bills. Sophie grew distant. She stopped asking how the job search was going. She spent more time with friends, more nights out networking, more mornings leaving the house before I even woke up. I'd wake up to the faint smell of her perfume lingering in the bedroom, mixed with the bitter scent of cold coffee from the night before, and I'd wonder if she was slipping away from me or if she was already gone. It was February 2022 when I found the first undeniable sign. I was cleaning out the living room, picking up stray socks and empty LaCroix cans, when Sophie's phone buzzed on the coffee table. She was in the shower. The preview popped up. "Last night was incredible. Can't stop thinking about you." My stomach dropped so hard I thought I might throw up. I stared at the message, my pulse hammering in my ears, my chest tightening until I could barely breathe. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. I sat there frozen, gripping her phone so tightly my knuckles went white, and all I could think was, how long? I didn't confront her right away. I couldn't. I needed to be sure. Over the next few days I watched her closely, the way she smiled at her phone, the sudden excuses to work late, the soft humming when she got dressed up to go out. I wanted to scream, to ask her why, but I couldn't bring myself to shatter the fragile illusion that maybe somehow I was wrong. But deep down, I knew I wasn't. By March we were strangers living under the same roof. I stopped sleeping next to her, stopped reaching for her hand, stopped trying to pretend that things were okay. I spent hours driving aimlessly through Austin at night, windows down, letting the cool spring air sting my face while I replayed our entire relationship in my head, wondering where it all went wrong. And yet I still loved her. God, I hated myself for it. But that's the cruelest thing about betrayal. It doesn't erase love, it just poisons it. I didn't know it then, but Sophie was already planning her exit. I'd find out soon enough. And when I did, it would break me in ways I didn't think were possible. But it would also set into motion a chain of events that neither of us could have predicted. Events that would make sure Sophie's happiness didn't last nearly as long as she thought it would. I'll never forget the date, March. It was a Saturday. The kind where Austin's skies are sharp blue and the breeze carries the faint smell of barbecue smoke from food trucks down the street. I'd spent the morning mindlessly scrolling through LinkedIn job postings, each rejection email from the week before still sitting unread in my inbox like tiny reminders that I was failing, not just as an employee but as a husband, as a man. Sophie was going to brunch with friends. That's what she said, tossing the words over her shoulder as she rummaged through the closet for her new silk blouse. I sat at the edge of the bed, watching her in the mirror as she got ready. Her hair fell in loose waves, her perfume filling the room, this sweet, intoxicating mix of vanilla and sandalwood I used to love. But something about her that morning, it was different. The way she hummed softly while touching up her makeup, the extra time she spent perfecting her eyeliner, the curve of her smile when she checked her phone. It wasn't brunch with friends. I didn't need proof. I felt it in my bones. I told myself to let it go. Don't start a fight. Don't push her further away. That's what my therapist, well, ex-therapist, since I couldn't afford sessions anymore, used to tell me. But when the door clicked shut behind her, the silence in our townhouse was deafening. I sat there for almost an hour, staring at the pile of bills on the counter, my laptop open on a blank resume draft, my chest tight with the kind of anxiety that settles in your bones and refuses to leave. And then, without thinking, I grabbed my keys and left. I drove aimlessly, ending up in South Congress, near the coffee shop where Sophie used to take me on Sunday mornings before we started drifting apart. I parked across the street, sipping a gas station iced coffee I didn't really want, just existing. And then I saw her. She wasn't alone. She walked out of the cafe, her hand brushing against his like it was the most natural thing in the world. He was tall, clean-cut, maybe mid-30s, with a Patagonia vest and that startup guy confidence that radiates without effort. She laughed our laugh, the one she used to save for me. And then she kissed him. Not a friendly peck, not a drunken mistake, a kiss full of familiarity, of longing, of something that had been happening for a long, long time. My hands tightened on the steering wheel until my knuckles burned. I couldn't breathe. The edges of my vision blurred as if my brain couldn't process what my eyes were seeing. A part of me wanted to storm across the street, scream, demand answers, but another part of me, the bigger part, just sat there in stunned silence, my chest hollow, my heartbeat pounding like distant thunder in my ears. I didn't confront her that day. I drove home, parked in the driveway, and sat there in my car for almost 3 hours. I replayed the moment over and over until it became a loop I couldn't escape, and somewhere between the tears and the numbness, reality sank in. She was already gone. She just hadn't told me yet. Sophie came home around 6. Her cheeks were flushed, her hair slightly tousled, her perfume stronger than usual. She walked into the kitchen like nothing happened, talking about how brunch ran late, and traffic was terrible. I nodded, pretended to listen, pretended I didn't know. That night I lay awake next to her, staring at the ceiling while she slept peacefully, her breathing steady. I counted the seconds between each inhale, wondering how someone I'd loved for 7 years could betray me so effortlessly, wondering if she ever loved me at all, or if I'd been living inside a carefully constructed lie this whole time. The next morning, I confronted her. I didn't plan it. I didn't rehearse the word. It just spilled out somewhere between pouring my coffee and seeing her text light up on the counter again. I asked her if she was seeing someone else. She froze, her mug halfway to her lips, her hazel eyes widening for just a split second before her expression shifted into something colder, distant. She didn't answer. She didn't deny it, didn't fight for us, didn't even pretend. She just stared at me, silent, and in that silence I had my answer. That silence destroyed me more than any confession ever could. Finally, after what felt like forever, she muttered something about not being happy anymore, that she needed space, that we wanted different things. Words so carefully chosen they sounded scripted, like she'd been rehearsing them for weeks, maybe months. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask her why she didn't fight for us, why she didn't give me a chance to fix things, why she threw away everything we'd built for him. But all that came out was a whisper. Who is he? She didn't answer. By the following week she was gone. March 27, 2022. That's the day she left. She packed her things while I sat on the couch, numb, my body heavy like I'd been drugged. I didn't try to stop. I didn't beg her to stay. There's a strange kind of dignity in silence, even when your heart is shattering into pieces so small they're barely dust. I watched her load the last box into the back of an Uber, her face pale and expressionless, like I was just another closed chapter in her book. She didn't look back. Not once. And then she was gone. The quiet that followed was unbearable. Our townhouse, once full of laughter and music and weekend rituals, became a graveyard of memories I couldn't escape. Her perfume still lingered on the pillows. Her toothbrush still sat by the sink. The half-empty jar of almond butter she loved mocked me every time I opened the kitchen cabinet. I started drinking more, not in a self-destructive way at first, but just enough to blur the sharp edges of reality, just enough to make the nights quieter, the mornings less suffocating. But the silence was relentless. The hardest part wasn't losing her, it was losing the version of myself I was when she loved me. The man who believed he was worthy of being chosen, the man who believed forever meant something. That man died the day she walked out the door. By April, depression had swallowed me whole. I stopped job hunting. I stopped returning calls. I stopped doing anything really. My days blurred together in an endless loop of microwaved meals, late-night whiskey, and staring blankly at my laptop screen. Everywhere I went I saw reminders of her. The mural on South Congress where she once made me take 50 pictures until she found the perfect one. The little taco truck where we used to stop after Sunday morning runs. The bridge where she said she wanted to grow old with me. And then one night, as I was scrolling through Instagram at 2 a.m., I saw it. Sophie, laughing, smiling, wrapped around him. His name was Daniel Carter. Apparently, a product manager at some fast-growing fintech startup in downtown Austin. Perfect jawline, perfect teeth, perfect life. The caption under their photo said DEPA, new beginnings, moving forward. My chest tightened, and for a moment I thought I might throw my phone across the room, but instead I just sat there staring at the screen until my eyes burned. She looked happy, genuinely, effortlessly happy, and I hated her for it. But more than that, I hated myself for still missing her. The thing about heartbreak is, everyone tells you it gets easier, that time heals, that you'll find someone better, but nobody talks about the nights when your chest aches so much it physically hurts,
when your hands shake holding a whiskey glass you didn't even want, when you start questioning everything you thought you knew about love, loyalty and yourself. By May I was running on autopilot, just existing, until the day I got a call from an old colleague at Cloudbyte. They were hiring again. I almost didn't apply. I didn't think I had it in me anymore, but something inside me, some tiny spark buried deep beneath all the grief, pushed me to try, and when I got the offer 2 weeks later, something shifted. For the first time in months, I felt like maybe I wasn't completely broken. But even as I started piecing my professional life back together, I couldn't shake the bitterness, because Sophie had moved on so effortlessly, because she seemed to be thriving while I was clawing my way out of rock bottom, and because somewhere deep down, I couldn't help but wonder, would karma ever catch up to her? I didn't have to wait long to find out. By June 2022, 3 months after Sophie left, I was starting to function again, or at least pretending to. My mornings no longer started with whiskey and ended in silence. I was working again, back at Cloudbyte, though in a smaller role with less pay and less pride attached to it. It wasn't the job I once had, but it was something, a lifeline. The first paycheck hit different. I remember holding that envelope in my hands, the crisp paper smelling faintly of printer ink, and realizing it wasn't about the money, it was about having purpose again, about feeling like I could stand on my own 2 feet without collapsing under the weight of everything Sophie had taken with her when she walked out the door. I started running again, early mornings by Lady Bird Lake, headphones blasting the National, lungs burning in the thick Texas heat. I needed something to exhaust me, something that reminded me I was still alive, even if most days I felt like a ghost. But healing isn't linear. Some mornings I woke up feeling like I was finally moving forward, and other mornings I lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying that moment outside the coffee shop. The image of Sophie kissing him burned permanently into the backs of my eyelids. And then there were the nights were the worst. At 2 a.m., when the city is quiet and shadows stretch long across empty streets, that's when memories haunt you the loudest. I'd lie there in bed, scrolling through Instagram, hating myself for still checking her profile, even though every photo was a knife twisting deeper. Her and Daniel at a winery in Fredericksburg, her and Daniel kayaking on Lake Travis, her and Daniel at his company's rooftop launch party, champagne flutes in hand, smiles bright enough to blind me through the screen. I started to wonder if maybe I'd been the problem all along, if maybe I wasn't enough, if maybe Sophie had been right to leave. That's the thing about heartbreak. It isn't just about losing someone, it's about losing the version of yourself that felt worthy of love. But then around late July, something unexpected happened. It started small. A mutual friend, Kara, sent me a screenshot one evening with no explanation, just the words, "You should probably see this." It was a private Facebook post from one of Daniel's ex-girlfriends, warning to anyone dating Daniel Carter, "Be careful, I wish someone had warned me." No details, no context, just that. I stared at the screen for a long time, my heart pounding in this strange conflicted rhythm, half anger, half anticipation. I didn't want to admit it, but there was a dark, quiet part of me that hoped Daniel wasn't who Sophie thought he was, that maybe she wasn't walking into the happily ever after she'd left me for. I didn't act on it immediately. I wasn't proud of how curious I became, but late that night, I found myself spiraling down an online rabbit hole. I searched for Daniel on LinkedIn, Twitter, Reddit, anywhere I could find crumbs of information, and then I found it, buried in a thread on an Austin startup forum. Someone had posted anonymously about a toxic PM at a fintech company downtown. The details were vague, but the comments underneath painted a clearer picture. Daniel had a reputation, arrogant, manipulative, known for dating interns and using his position to control them. There were whispers of inappropriate relationships, office drama, and even rumors of him quietly settling something out of court 2 years ago. I sat there in the dim light of my living room, my laptop warming my thighs, feeling a complicated mix of vindication and disgust. On one hand, part of me wanted to text Sophie right then and there, send her the links, scream, "This is the man you left me for." But another part of me, the bigger part, stayed quiet, because I realized something. I didn't need to warn her. Karma was already on its way. Weeks passed, and I tried to let go, tried to focus on work, on running, on anything but her. But on August 18th, karma decided to introduce itself in the most unexpected way. I was grabbing coffee at Merit Coffee Co., headphones in, half awake before a morning meeting. I turned around with my cup in hand, and nearly collided with her, Sophie. It had been nearly 5 months since I'd last seen her in person, and for a second, It was like time folded in on itself. She looked the same, and yet different. There was a heaviness to her I didn't recognize. Something in her posture, her tired eyes. She forced a smile. "Hey," I nodded, keeping my expression neutral, though inside, my chest was tight with a hurricane of emotions: anger, longing, resentment, nostalgia. I wanted to ask her 1,000 questions, but instead I just said, "Hi." An awkward silence stretched between us, and then almost involuntarily I glanced at her left hand. No ring. I didn't ask. She didn't offer. She just muttered something about running late and left, her perfume lingering in the air long after she was gone. I stood there for a long time, heart pounding, realizing for the first time that maybe, just maybe, her perfect world wasn't so perfect anymore. 2 days later I found out why. Kara called me, practically buzzing with the kind of energy only gossip carries. She didn't even say hello before blurting out Daniel cheated on her. I froze, phone pressed against my ear, my coffee going cold on the counter. Apparently Daniel had been caught with one of his interns at a company off-site in Dallas. Someone leaked photos. Sophie found out through a mutual friend before he could even spin his side of the story. She'd moved out of his luxury condo downtown the week before I ran into her. I didn't feel joy when I heard it. Not really. It was complicated. There was relief, yes, and some twisted sense of justice, but mostly there was sadness. Sadness for the years I gave her. Sadness for the version of us that died long before Daniel entered the picture. But there was also something else brewing beneath the surface. A quiet, undeniable shift. For the first time in months, I felt free, because watching her happiness crumble didn't heal me, but it reminded me of something important. I didn't break her. She broke herself. By September I had stopped checking Sophie's social media. I unfollowed, muted, deleted numbers, anything to remove her from my daily orbit. I started going to therapy again, started talking to people, even went on a few casual dates, though I wasn't ready for anything serious yet. Healing was slow, uneven and messy. There were setbacks, sure, nights when I still reached for my phone, mornings when the weight of her absence hit harder than I expected, but little by little I was clawing my way back to myself. Sophie was unraveling. I started hearing things through mutual friends, little updates I didn't ask for but couldn't avoid. She'd quit freelance photography and picked up a barista job to make ends meet. She was subletting a cramped studio apartment near Rainy Street. Daniel had already moved on to someone younger, prettier, and if the rumors were true, just as temporary. Life had dealt her the hand she chose, and for the first time, I didn't feel bitterness about it. I felt indifferent, and that, more than anything, was the real turning point. Because when you stop needing karma to deliver justice, that's when you finally start to heal. But as much as I thought I was done with Sophie, the universe wasn't quite finished with us yet. Something was coming, something that would drag me back into her orbit in ways I never expected.
By October 2022, life had finally started to feel quiet. Not perfect, not healed, but steady in a way I hadn't experienced since Sophie left. My new routine was simple. Work during the day, evening runs by Ladybird Lake, the occasional happy hour with colleagues. I even adopted a dog, a goofy brown-eyed rescue mutt I named Finn, because I needed something alive in my apartment other than my own restless thoughts. Most nights, it was just me, Finn, and a playlist of soft indie rock playing low in the background while I cooked something simple. No drama, no late-night tears scrolling through Instagram, no checking her profile. I'd finally muted her existence from my life. Or at least, I thought I had. Then came the text. It was October 14th. I was in bed, Finn curled against my legs, drifting in and out of sleep, when my phone buzzed on the nightstand. "Sophie, can we talk?" I just stared at the screen, my stomach dropping. I hadn't heard from her since our awkward encounter at the coffee shop 2 months earlier. There were a dozen things I wanted to type back, some angry, some bitter, some curious. But I didn't reply. Not that night. The next morning, I woke up to another text. "Sophie, please, it's important." Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her at Houndstooth Coffee downtown. When I walked in, I barely recognized her. The Sophie I knew, the one with perfectly curated outfits, glossy hair and a constant, easy smile, was gone. In her place sat someone smaller, dimmer, weighed down by exhaustion and something that looked a lot like regret. Her oversized sweater swallowed her frame, her nails were chipped, and there were faint shadows under her eyes that makeup couldn't hide. For a moment, I almost didn't sit down. A part of me wanted to turn around and walk out, to preserve the fragile peace I'd built for myself. But another part, the part that still wanted answers, closure, maybe even revenge, kept my feet moving. "Hey," she said softly, her voice rough, like she hadn't been sleeping. I nodded, sitting across from her. The silence between us was heavy, thick with all the unspoken things hanging in the air. Finally she sighed and looked down at her coffee, tracing the rim of the cup with her finger. "I messed up," she whispered. No apology, no excuses, just those 3 words. I didn't say anything. I wanted her to fill the silence, to explain herself, to dig her own grave. And she did. She told me about Daniel, about how at first, it felt like freedom, like she'd finally found someone exciting, someone who made her feel alive again after years of routine. How she believed he was different, how she believed leaving me was the start of her real life. And then, one by one, she unraveled the truth. Daniel had cheated on her multiple times, with interns, co-workers, even one of her friends from her Pilates club. He drained her savings, convincing her to invest in one of his side projects, only for her to discover later that the money went straight into his personal debt. By the time she realized who he really was, it was too late. He'd moved on without a backward glance, leaving her with nothing emotionally, financially, and physically. Sophie's voice cracked when she admitted she'd been forced to move into a studio apartment she hated, juggling 2 part-time jobs just to keep afloat. And then finally she said it. "I thought I'd be happy without you. I thought I'd be okay." For a long time, I just sat there letting her words hang between us. My mind was a storm of conflicting emotions, anger, pity, resentment, and strangely relief. Because this wasn't about schadenfreude. It wasn't about celebrating her downfall. It was about validation, about realizing, for the first time, that I hadn't been the failure she made me feel like. She'd built a life without me, and it had collapsed. Not because of anything I did or didn't do, but because of choices she made. That's when I understood something important. I didn't owe her anything. Not forgiveness, not friendship, not even sympathy. I left the cafe without giving her an answer, my chest tight but lighter somehow. I expected that to be the end of it, but Sophie didn't disappear. Over the next few weeks, she texted me sporadically. At first, it was small things, asking about Finn, asking how work was going. Then the messages became heavier. "I miss you. I made a mistake. Can we try again?" I didn't reply. Not to a single one. I won't lie, there was a part of me late at night that wanted to, a part that remembered the good years, the laughter, the easy intimacy of being known so completely by someone else. But I also remembered the coffee shop, the kiss, the silence when I confronted her, the way she packed her things without looking back. You can't unbreak something like that. And yet, as much as I ignored her, life kept finding ways to pull me back into her orbit. In November, a friend from our old running group invited me to a charity event downtown. I almost didn't go, but Finn needed the walk, and honestly, I was tired of avoiding places that reminded me of her. That's where I saw Sophie again. She was across the room, talking to Kara, wearing a navy dress I used to love. But this time, there was no pang in my chest, no ache in my stomach. I felt nothing. Later that night, as I was leaving, she approached me. Her eyes were glassy, her smile nervous. "Can we talk?" she asked softly. I shook my head. No, that was it. One word. Her face fell, but I didn't stop. I walked away, Finn trotting happily by my side, and for the first time in over a year I felt freaked. By December 2022, I'd moved into a new apartment closer to downtown. I repainted the walls, bought furniture that didn't remind me of her, started filling the space with things that were mine. I went to therapy weekly, joined a climbing gym, even started dating casually. Not because I wanted to replace her, but because I was finally ready to rediscover myself without her shadow looming over me. That's when Sophie stopped texting. I thought that was the end of our story, that karma had played its part, that life had balanced itself out. But then in January 2023, I got a call that flipped everything upside down again. Sophie's mother, Marianne, called me out of the blue. We hadn't spoken since the wedding, and hearing her voice nearly made me drop my phone. "Alex," she said softly, "I thought you should know. Sophie's in the hospital." My chest tightened instantly. She had a breakdown,
Marianne continued, her voice cracking. Daniel, he's suing her, over the investment. She's not okay. For a moment I couldn't breathe. I wanted to hang up to pretend I didn't care, to keep the walls I'd spent months building intact, but instead I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, silent, caught between the person I used to be and the person I was becoming. I didn't know what I'd do, but I knew one thing for sure. Sophie's story wasn't finished yet, and somehow, neither was mine. I didn't sleep that night. After Marianne's call, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thin curled against my feet, his soft breathing grounding me while my own chest felt like it was caving in. Sophie, hospital, breakdown, Daniel suing her. 1,000 memories crashed over me all at once. The girl I met in college, the one who stayed up late eating gas station tacos with me, the woman who once believed in my dreams more than I did, and the stranger who'd broken me with a single betrayal. I hadn't spoken to her in months, yet part of me still cared. Against everything I'd promised myself, against the walls I'd built, I knew I had to see her. The hospital. The next morning, I drove to St. David's Medical Center. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles ached, and the entire drive, my mind wavered between anger, guilt, and something dangerously close to longing. Marianne met me in the lobby. Her face was pale and drawn, her usually perfect hair tied back in a messy knot. She's not doing well, she whispered, hugging me briefly. She hasn't been eating, hasn't been sleeping. When Daniel filed the lawsuit, she just broke. We walked together to Sophie's room, the soft beeping of machines filling the sterile hallway. I paused at the door, bracing myself before stepping inside. Sophie sat on the bed, knees pulled to her chest, staring out the window. Her once vibrant energy was gone, replaced by something fragile, hollow. When she turned and saw me, her eyes widened. Alex. Her voice was hoarse, disbelieving. I nodded slightly, standing frozen near the door. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then slowly tears welled in her eyes, and she whispered, "I didn't think you'd come." I almost didn't, I admitted. She laughed weakly, the sound cracked and empty. "Yeah, that sounds about right." The conversation. I sat on the chair by her bed, my chest tight as we finally talked, really talked for the first time since she'd left me. She told me everything. How Daniel had manipulated her, how he'd convinced her to drain her savings and co-sign on loans she couldn't afford, how when he walked out, he left her drowning in debt and shame. "I thought he was my fresh start," she whispered, wiping her face with trembling hand. "I thought leaving you was the right choice, and instead I destroyed everything." Her words hung between us, heavy and raw. "Sophie," I said quietly, my voice steady, "you didn't destroy me." She blinked, startled. "You hurt me," I continued, "more than I thought I could be hurt. But I rebuilt myself. I got back up, and I need you to understand this. I'm okay now, and I'm not here because I want us back. I'm here because I don't want you to keep breaking yourself." Her lower lip trembled, and for a second I saw the Sophie I used to know, the girl who laughed at my bad jokes, who believed we'd take on the world together. "I'm sorry," she whispered, over and over, like the words might undo everything. I didn't forgive her, not completely, but for the first time, I didn't need to. Karma's final move. Over the next few weeks, Sophie started therapy. I didn't stay by her side, not in the way she wanted, but I helped connect her with resources, talked her through setting up a payment plan for her debts, and gave her Marianne's unwavering support when she needed it. Daniel, meanwhile, got exactly what Karma promised him. The so-called business deals he bragged about, investigated. The loans he forged under fake companies, exposed. By March 2023, he was under federal scrutiny for fraud, facing multiple lawsuits from other victims. I didn't celebrate when I heard the news, but I'd be lying if I said it didn't feel like the universe had finally balanced the scales. Moving on. By April 2023, I realized something important. Helping Sophie wasn't about rekindling old flames, it was about closure, hers and mine. One evening, I visited her apartment. She was sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by half-packed boxes and takeout containers, wearing an oversized hoodie. "You look better," I said, leaning against the doorframe. She smiled faintly. "I feel better, a little." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of everything unsaid settling between us. Finally, she spoke. "Do you ever think about what we could have been?" I swallowed hard, thinking about late-night road trips, shared dreams, and the life we almost built together. "Sometimes," I admitted, "but that's not where we are anymore." Her eyes glistened, but she nodded. She understood, and for the first time since she walked out, I felt free. One last message. In June 2023, I met someone new. Her name was Claire, an ER nurse I bumped into at a climbing gym. She was warm, grounded, and refreshingly straightforward. Dating her felt different, easier, like breathing after holding my breath for years. I didn't plan to tell Sophie, but she found out anyway. One night, I got a simple text. Sophie, I heard about Claire. I'm happy for you, truly. And I believed her. I stared at the message for a long time before typing back, thank you. I hope you find your happiness too. That was the last time we ever spoke. The ending, and the beginning. It's been a year since then. Finn's bigger now, my apartment feels like home, and Claire and I are talking about moving in together. I still pass by places that remind me of Sophie sometimes. The cafe where we first met, the trail where we used to run on Sunday mornings, and when I do, there's no bitterness anymore, just memory. Sophie's rebuilding her life too. From what Marianne tells me, she's back in school studying counseling, hoping to help people avoid the mistakes she made, and maybe that's karma too, not punishment, but growth. I lost her, then I lost myself, but somewhere in the wreckage, I found someone I never expected me, and this time, I'm not letting go.